You're listening to Recovery Survey, the podcast that shatters stigmas around different types of addictions and takes a deep dive into spiritual principles.
I had the feeling that I wasn't good enough, that I shouldn't actually say how I'm feeling. And I carried that with me for a really long time.
All right, my guest today is my good friend Zach. He's here to tell us a little bit about his recovery journey as well as his new podcast, Broken Lenses. Welcome to the show, Zach.
My name's Zach. I a little over 2 years clean or sober, however you want to put it. I do attend meetings quite regularly. I sponsor. I don't currently have anybody in the book. I think my last sponsee died. I don't have actual proof of that. They just stopped talking to me. But yeah, I got sober in October of 2018. And to be honest with you, it wasn't my plan. I started a new job. A lot of the guys that I was working with were sober, and I didn't even know it. And I was just planning on not being loaded while I was at work. And now 2 years later, I'm going to work every day. I can actually be relied upon, and it's been a weird ride. I think I don't really know how else to explain it. So, what do you want me to talk about, Brett? Oh, all right, apparently Siri had an idea on what to talk about.
Would you like to go into more detail on your story, or do you want to just talk about the new podcast?
So, I grew up I guess I was born in Indiana, and my parents got divorced. Both of them got remarried. My dad then got divorced again. But I lived with my mom growing up, and I didn't really have a super close relationship with my dad because I was always with my mom and my stepdad. And about 7 years old, we moved to Virginia for about 3 years. I remember in Virginia when my mom and my stepdad came to me and my older sister one day, and they told us that my dad said that he wanted my stepdad to adopt us, and that it was completely up to me and my sister, and both me and my sister said that we didn't want that to happen. I think that my dad was just kind of at that point in his life where he didn't really know if he had anything to offer. Looking back at it, I truly do think that he wanted the best situation for us, even if that wasn't him. But both me and my sister said no. And then I remember having a conversation a little bit after that with my mom, and my mom had told me that before her and my dad got together, that my dad told her that he wasn't going to be like his father. And my dad would wait for his dad to get home every day. He would, he'd play games and play baseball. That was my dad's thing, was baseball. And he would wait on the front porch for my grandfather to get home. And one day, my dad was like 6 or 7. He never came home. And my dad told my mom that he wasn't going to be like his dad. He wasn't going to leave like that. But in his attempts to not be his dad, he did leave. They got divorced when I was 2, so I didn't really experience that, or didn't really know what the hell was going on. And then my stepdad came into the picture when I was 6.5, almost 7. They got together and are still together to this day. But I remember when I was living with when we were living with my uncle. I was about 6, and I had older cousins I was 6, they were 9 and like 12. And like at that age, that's a huge difference in, what you're experiencing, what you can do, and how you're living in the world, I guess. And my uncle told him to take me with them, and they told me when I fell and I scraped my knee, I was 6, I was crying about it. And they would tell me, hey, don't, guys don't cry about this stuff. We laugh about it. And I really took that to heart because I wanted to keep up with my older cousins. And it's not the greatest advice. And I've recently gotten to that. Like, I know that I love my cousins to death. I know that they love me as well. And I don't think their intention was to tell me to not say how I'm feeling, but I wanted to spend time with them, and I didn't really know to ask questions, or that was something that was probably not the healthiest thing to do. And that kind of shaped a lot of how I looked at the world. Very, very early in my life, I was looking at the world from the perspective of I had the feelings I wasn't good enough, that I shouldn't actually say how I'm feeling. And I carried that with me for a really long time. We moved out to Arizona when I was 10, and I had a friend in 5th and 6th grade, and the middle schools out there are 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And the summer between 6th and 7th grade, we found out he had cancer. And I gravitated towards him because he was one of my closest friends, and I wanted to be there. I didn't want him to be alone. I wanted to make sure that he knew that I cared. So I spent most of my junior high with him, and I wasn't the greatest student in junior high. I think the thing that made it hard for me was all the tests that I would take said that I knew what was going on, but I think I wasn't challenged enough, or again, I didn't ask questions as to why I had to do homework or why it was so important. And over the last 2 years, I feel like I've started to figure out why my teachers harped so much on doing homework, because it was just small little habits, that will benefit me in the future, which it's really hard to see that when I'm only looking at I don't want to do it now. How is it going to benefit me in the future? I spent a lot of time with him, and he passed away 2 weeks before I turned 17. And in our household, my stepdad is a doctor, and my mom got to stay at home and take care of us kids, and take us to music lessons and all the other extracurricular activities. We really didn't have limits as to what we could do if we wanted to do it. My parents just wanted us to experience it all and to have every opportunity in the world, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But during that time, I didn't really take advantage of that. I didn't really know that that's what they were trying to do. Or I'm grateful for my stepdad and my mom, because I could have ended up so much worse off, where I had all these opportunities, and now I'm starting to use all the stuff that they tried to give me back then. So anyways, yeah, we get to Arizona. Been there for the better part of the last 20 years. And they didn't really know what was going on with me in high school. My sisters called me the golden child because I really learned how to live two different lives. I call myself a late bloomer because besides having a beer at 4 years old, I didn't start drinking until I was 17. One of my friend's parents went out of town. We were watching the house, and we all decided it was going to be a great idea, like any other kid does when parents go out of town, to have a party. I had 2 or 3 beers right off the rip. We were playing beer pong, and I found one of those red Solo cups filled with vodka. I realized real quick it was vodka, and definitely didn't tell anybody, and just down the entire cup. A couple hours later, I wake up and I've got dick drawn all over my face, and all these different stuff that people draw on you when you're at a party with your friends. I had snuck out. I was grounded at that point, and I get back to my house, and first thing I do before I go inside, I puke in the front yard after I get on my buddy's car, and somehow I make it upstairs and into my bed. I remember my mom coming in the next morning and looking at me and was like, "What's all over your face?" And I'm like, "Oh, we had a really fun time at work last night. It was great." I'm told that most normal people, when they experience this, these shitty kind of experiences, that most normal people will not do it again. And me, I was like, well, that was really fucked up. Let's do it again. So, so it was on and off from there, drinking. And I like to make the joke that in 2010, I spent that year being a drunk because I chose to do it, right? And 2010, one of my aunts had passed away, and I definitely gravitated towards places that let me drink, or let it be the norm that you can drink a lot. So my senior year in high school, I joined the Marine Corps. I wish I could say it was because I wanted to join the Marine Corps. It's because I was trying to impress a girl, which it's not a great idea to join a branch of the military if you're trying to impress a girl. And I spent almost 6 years in the Marine Corps, drinking just about everything I could get my hands on. About 2 years into that 6-year contract, I walked out of. I was reserved down in Tucson, and walked out of work one night. I was working at Little Caesars. Walked out of work one night and was just lost and didn't know what to do and didn't know who to talk to. And I walked out to my car and opened my glove box and pulled out a Glock and loaded around in the chamber. And as soon as I did that, I knew I was too scared to kill myself. Got some psych evals done after that because I told some people, and they took me to the hospital, and they sent me home, and I went to see a psychiatrist. I started taking antidepressants, and it really started to work. It really started to help. And 3 months later, I thought I was fixed. This is working, so you know what? I'm going to stop because I don't need it anymore. I can do it myself. And, went on another run, started drinking, got into a very, very toxic relationship. It was, one day we were dating, one day we were broken up. The next couple hours, like, we couldn't live without each other. And it wasn't ever physically abusive. It was mostly the mental aspect of it. Gaslighted the fuck out of each other. It was a very expensive relationship. I destroyed about 6 iPhones, probably in the span of like 3 weeks. And I was not working at a job where I could sustain that kind of money. So near the end of that relationship, I started shoplifting, and because I was just trying to survive at that point, I was in survival mode. Got out of that, and ever since, I've not really been in a relationship, but I moved out to Texas, and when I moved out to Texas, I ended up hurting my back at work, and right off the rip, they were prescribing Tylenol 3 and Oxycontin, oxycodone, hydrocodones, all that fun stuff. And, if some of it worked pretty well, more of it was even better. So I was, kind of popping them like breath mints at that point. I remember my old boss had a prescription for methadone, and I ended up convincing him to give me one. And methadone is no joke. So, anyways, I got there and I continued to try to find something that would ease the pain. The physical pain, the mental exhaustion, all of that. And then, probably about 3 years ago, I found somebody who had meth, and that sounded like a fantastic idea. The reasoning that I had in my head was that, somebody that I liked and that I cared about, was doing it, and I wanted to understand. I've since learned that, that normal people don't try to understand by doing drugs. They have conversations. Yeah. So once I found meth, it was off to the races, man. Like, I was going to do whatever I needed to do to get it. There were times where I was like, you know what, I'm stopping. I was like, I have the willpower, or like, I can control this. It got to a point where that was the delusion that I lived in, was that I could control it. And because I could go a day or 2 days without it, it was okay. I held down a job, kind of. I went to that job most of the time. I had a budget. And I budgeted how much I could spend on my drugs that month. All these crazy things that I would do to kind of like make me feel okay about doing this. I found every small little way to do it. And then I was living with a guy that I started a company with, and we met one of the guys that I went to work for after I got sober. And the funny thing is that almost everybody around me at that point knew that I was doing something. They just didn't know what. I remember we were going to an inspection because we do roofing. And I was a public adjuster at that point, and we were getting ready to go to a big inspection and walk out of the house. And I lived and worked with this guy, and he said that we needed to go get 4 more ladders. I didn't think they were going to fit in the back of the truck. And we had a big explosion. We had said that we didn't want to do some of the same things that we had left the company previously overdoing. And we ended up, he ended up doing some of those same things, and instantly, I had taken a step back from all the drug usage for a little bit, and instantly, once he was doing some of the same stuff we tried to get away from, it was like, cool, you know what, like, if you're gonna do that, then this is my reason that I'm just gonna be high all the time. So we had this big blow up, and I call the guy that I actually work for now, and we went to dinner. I was in survival mode where, like, I had to get his business before my old business partner got his business. We sit down at dinner, and I was ready to tell him everything, and I'm like, I got to tell you some stuff, man. And he's like, I already know. He had already talked to my business partner and knew that we had a big explosion and stuff was going on, and he was honest with me sitting there. I didn't expect it, but he had some of the same experiences that I had, and was sitting in front of me, and somehow he was almost 7 years sober. And it was like, at that moment, I thought that everybody didn't understand, and that nobody ever would, and nobody knew how I felt. And he had told me that he was 7 years sober, and I'm like, cool, I haven't done anything in like 3 hours. But then I went to work for him a couple days later, and the first time that I got into his office, about 30 minutes into that day, he looked at me and he's like, is it the first time you've ever been in my office not loaded? And I was like, oh, damn, he knew. And at that point, I kind of realized that I was the only person that didn't know that everybody else knew. My plan was to not get high in his office or go into his world loaded. I was going to be a weekend warrior. That first Friday that I spent with him, they were like, "Hey, you want to go to a meeting at lunchtime?" And I'm like, I have no idea what meeting there is at lunchtime. I didn't get that memo. But, like, if y'all are going, I'm going, right? And I walk in there with them, and it's in Tempe, Arizona. It's a ticket topic meeting, which means that, they have somebody speak for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they pull tickets out of a basket. And when you walk in the door, there's somebody there handing out tickets, and it was super loud that day, and I was just trying to fit in, right? And I thought I heard them ask overeater or undereater. And I later found out that was not the question that they asked. But I was like, I don't know. People are talking about, like, being honest and shit. And, like, this is just a way messed up question to ask me. But, like, I overate today. Right? I was like, if I'm going to practice being honest, like, start right now. So, I go to that meeting for the next 2 weeks. And then one of my friends gets up there and he's speaking one day. And I was going in, like every other day, I was like bouncing back and forth. I was like, yeah, I overate today. Yeah, I underate today. He pulls me aside because my ticket got called when he was speaking, and I was super stoked and just like, yes, I get to speak on what he's talking about today. And he pulls me aside at the end of the meeting and he's like, yeah, the ticket that you pulled is for over a year of sobriety. And at that point, I realized that they had been asking me over a year of sobriety or under a year of sobriety. I was just too scared to ask. Ever since the day that I started, working for this new company, October 29th of 2018 is my clean date. So it was not what I expected. It's far beyond what I could have imagined, which, I think a lot of the fellowships say that if you wrote down where you think you'd be after coming into this fellowship, it would exceed your wildest dreams. And it has. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of background on me.
So before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about your upcoming podcast, and you were saying that it's not exactly a recovery podcast. Would you mind telling the listeners a little bit more about your new show and the idea behind it?
Absolutely. The podcast is going to be called Broken Lenses. And the whole idea behind Broken Lenses is people sharing their perspective. Earlier this year, I heard this song. I guess it's a Christian song, and there was a line in it that really just caught my attention and kind of rattled around in my brain. And it says, now you only see through broken lenses, trying to keep your head above the shame. And instantly I was able to connect with that because that's how I felt growing up. I felt like I was trying to hide all these shameful things and trying to pretend that I was a different person. And this year has been one of those years where I've lost some really good friends that I didn't think I was going to lose, and lost some family members. Some of the time that was leading up to these people passing away, I thought that these were the things that were going to break me. These were going to be the things that I got high over. These are the things that nobody else is going to understand. And it's this weird, for me at least, it's this weird place that I feel like I can go to where if I don't hear from somebody, my perspective is that if I don't hear from somebody for an extended period of time, they're probably dead. And that sucks. But what I found this year is that, by talking about it and sharing that with somebody else, one of my good friends actually said that the cool thing is that when you share something, you take one of those rocks that you're carrying around in your backpack you share that with somebody else, the cool thing is that they don't then put that in their backpack. They have the ability to set that down, and your pack that you're carrying isn't as heavy anymore. Yeah, perspective this year has come into my head quite a bit, and I really just wanted to talk to people about it and hear all their different perspectives and, you know, what worked for people, what didn't work for people, the experiences that they've had, and, you know, have a conversation and give people kind of a safe space. It's definitely, I don't think it's going to be so much a designated recovery podcast, just more so, you know, sharing what worked and what didn't, and what experiences have led to the perspective that you have today.
Thank you again, Zach, for being on the podcast today. I would strongly encourage you guys to check out his podcast, Broken Lenses. The links for that will be in the show notes. Thanks again, Zach. You've been listening to Recovery Survey. If you got anything out of today's episode, I'd ask you to please leave us a 5-star review and share this episode with a friend. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can find us at recoverysurvey.com. You can listen to all of our episodes on the website, as well as connect with us on social media, where you can get previews for upcoming episodes.